Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first ever WIAA Team State Bracket Reveal. I am Teague Fenwick, and joining me is Nate Archinago. Nate, 3 days of
Teague?
individual state flew by really fast. And just real quick, thoughts on individual state here.
Well, yeah, I would. You're right. It flew by fast. We got out there Wednesday evening. A lot of people tuned in for that state show, for the pre-individual state show. But it flew by, and the tournament was really great, really exciting. But it's a long 3 days. Like, it flies by, but you are consuming so much wrestling and so many results that I feel like you put yourself through the blender mentally, and it's good. I'm glad I did it, and I was glad we were there. So I'm excited for Team State, though, because this is also some of the best wrestling of the year. It's just in the barn and in that field house, the way it gets loud and it gets rocking. It's hard to replicate. It is hard to replicate in an environment like that. So I am pumped. I'm ready to get to Team State.
Well, after 1,126 matches at the Kohl Center, we are now down to 13 duels on the WIAA season, which equals out to 182 matches. But I know folks are tuned in to check out these team state brackets. So let's hop right into Division One. The top seed coming in this year, is anyone surprised? It is the Kaukauna Galloping Ghosts, who are making their 22nd team state appearance, and they're looking to win their fourth team state title in a row, taking on newcomers to the field house, the 8-seeded Homestead Highlanders, making their first team state appearance.
Yeah, as you can see on the graphic, Kaukauna is, like you said, they're coming back to win. They're going to try and win another state title in a row here. But they have 7 qualifiers, and Homestead has 8. They had in head coach Ernie Millard's last season, they have put together by far the best season in Homestead Highlander history, with 8 state qualifiers. And I'll tell you what, I'm excited for this matchup. I think I think Homestead is really rolling. They had a lot of success at individual state, a lot of first time success too. So I feel like for them, no better way to send out a coach that's been there for so long, a name well known in Wisconsin wrestling, than to send him out on a high note. And no better way for Kaukauna to just keep things rolling by trying to go get one more state title on the season.
One thing we always like to see is when the 8 seed just leaves it all on the mat against the top seed here in Division One. And the big question everyone has to be asking, will Ernie Millard and the Homestead coaching staff be rocking the Highlander kilts at the field house Friday evening?
What do you think, Teague? I think if they can if they can make their way to the finals, I think you could see them show up in that as their a wardrobe change for that finals matchup if they make it there.
It would make for a great finals fit, Nate. Who will one of these two teams be facing in the semifinals? So let's take a look here at the 4 or 5 matchup. But coming in at the 4 seed, the Menominee Mustangs making their first team state appearance. And they'll be taking on a McGuanago, who's come to team state for the 12th time. This has all the makings of a fun 4-5 matchup. Before I give my thoughts, Nate, let's hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, really, really excited for this matchup. I actually, this might be my most excited duel that I'm looking forward to. I think Menominee is just a really well-rounded team, and McGuanago is the same. I feel like this could go either way. It's probably appropriate if it's the 4-5 matchup, right? I can see either team winning this. I think the environment, McGuanago's been here. They've been here. They started to become a regular team at the Fieldhouse at the end of the year over the last decade. And it's Menominee's first time here. So that environment, wrestling in the Fieldhouse, the way it gets rocking, how loud it gets, the chaos that's going on, I think as a team, it's something that they got to settle in with right away. Don't let your emotions kind of get too far into play. And from Guanago, they're kind of those veterans in that regard. So maybe that plays an advantage for them. Maybe it doesn't. But the matchups are really exciting with the 5 state qualifiers from Menominee. They qualified at 106, 113 with Braden Casey obviously placing second, 120 with Aiden Ari, 150 and 165. So we're going to see a couple of overlaps in the state qualifier matchups. I think 120 could be a very interesting matchup. And then again, I think 106 is another big time matchup. They wrestled in the Consi round of 2, Bailey Casey and Gavin Meineke. Meineke obviously went on, he placed then, winning that blood round match. So I could see Bailey Casey trying to get a little revenge here at Team State. I've seen it happen in the past, and it's something that could happen again this weekend. What do you think about the matchups with the state qualifiers and state placers?
Well, Nate, I gotta say, I think you put it perfectly. You have two really well-rounded teams in this one, and I think with that, you're gonna have folks or the coaches looking at the lineups, and I'm sure we're gonna see some lineup chess between the two
Yeah,
teams, of course. But the fun of it, they're two teams that are 3 hours 45 minutes apart with similar builds, and that's why we love that we get to see them match up in Madison on a
I
Friday. And of course, notable figures at the helm for both teams. McGuanago, coached by John Wearsbicky or Coach Dubs, and Menominee, coached by Rylan Lubeck. Speaking of
I
Coach Lubeck, Nate. Oh, sorry. Yep, you go.
No, I was just gonna say I thought an interesting thing to consider too is so Mawanago has those 3 state placers on the boys side, but as soon as you started talking about the magic and the shifting of lineups that could potentially happen, Josie Stokowski of Mawanago, she was wrestling in the starting lineup all at the end of the year from Mawanago. She was in the starting lineup in the past seasons, and she placed third at the girls' state tournament. So that is someone that I think you have to consider that would be back in the lineup for them here this weekend in the field house.
She could play a wild card in what would be some crucial lower weights for
Mhm.
both teams. And speaking of Coach Lubeck, coaching the Mustangs, let's go back to Coach Lubeck's alma mater, where we'll go to our 3-6 matchup and next. The 3 seed Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln going to Team State for the 19th time, their first time since 2015, taking on the Hartford Union Orioles, who are going to Team State for the 9th time, their first time since 2012. And Nate, here's the fun thing about this one. The last time Hartford was at Team State, lost a 33-25 final against it. You guessed it, Wisconsin Rapids.
Wow, do you, that I don't even know when that was. I think you just gave me a little bit of a history lesson there. Um, but this matchup has kind of all the makings of another classic. I think with Rapids coming back and having the team that the kind of success that they've had this year. I feel like in their minds, they're back and they're ready to show everyone that they can capture a state title. And Hartford's just historically had some rich tradition with wrestling. They've had a lot of individual success. I can think of a lot of state champions and state placers coming out of that Hartford program. So them back in the field house this weekend at Team State probably just feels right to them. It feels like this is what's supposed to happen. So I don't think they're coming in with any reserves that they can't get the job done.
Yeah, and Hartford, of course, coming out of a chaotic sectional where things just seemed up in the air to start the year. So for them coming in as the underdog against Rapids, just a familiar feeling for
Hmm.
them as they enter the field house, and really excited for these two to battle on Friday evening. Folks, that first session of 5:30 on Friday, we'll have the D1 quarter finals. And I know folks are waiting to see where these two last teams line up. Nate, I know you're excited for it. We have a Classic 8 battle, a rematch, in fact, as I'm sure you'll be talking about. But the
Hmm.
last two teams in the D1 field, the 2 seed, Muskego, who's going to Team State for the 12th time, will be facing off against the 7th seeded Arrowhead Warhawks, also going to Team State for the 12th time in their program history.
Yeah, this will be a great one. Like you said, a Classic 8 matchup. This is three Classic 8 teams that punched their ticket to the Fieldhouse this weekend. McGuanago being that third Classic 8 team. So this is really exciting. Familiar faces. They've wrestled at conference and they wrestle during the season. They see each other at some tournaments, things like that. So definitely familiar with each other here. Muskego making that run to the semifinals last year before losing to Kakana. I'm sure that has left a little bit of a bitter taste in their mouth, and they'd like to do the same. But they were regular season champions in the duel this year, and they took out Arrowhead and they took out Mugwanago. So you gotta think that they could be the favorites, having done it once already. But Arrowhead seems to be rolling late here. They seem to get healthy. I think they were missing a few guys potentially in their lineup earlier in the season for a few of their duels, and it feels like they just everything's kind of chugging along for them. And individual state this past weekend, I felt like was a clear indication of that being the case.
Yeah, the Warhawks already had team sectionals, avenging one loss against a Classic 8 foe with their sectional final win against Waukesha West. We'll see if they can do it again against Muskego in the first round on a Friday. So we'll take a look at the whole bracket here. And I first thought, Nate, the trivia with this one, these Classic 8 teams seem to be in a battle of who can make it to team state the most. Right now, Mugwanago, Muskego, and Arrowhead, all 12 appearances across the board for them. So a three-way tie for these three, which is just really fun trivia for the folks in Southeast Wisconsin. But what are your thoughts on this bracket as a whole, Nate?
Well, as you can see at the top, Kakana is the only undefeated team in this bracket. They're definitely going to be the favorite, obviously being that they are the 1 seed and winning how many state titles now in a row. But my biggest takeaway when I look at this bracket is I really think it's anybody's day. Who decides to show up at the Fieldhouse? I can really see all of these teams making a run into that state finals matchup on Saturday afternoon. I don't think anybody can't be beat this year, and that just gets me excited because I think we're going to see from the jump. I think we're going to see very competitive duels with some big swings right in round one here, and I think it's just going to continue all the way through. I think there's going to be a lot of lineup switches in this field. I think people are going to be bumping up and bumping out. I just think there's going to be a lot of chaos going on in the Division I field, and that just makes for exciting and entertaining wrestling.
And there's 4 mats, so there is a lot to keep track of. But don't worry, the home crowds will be doing a good job of letting us know where all the action is taking place. So, folks, that is the Division I field.
Is there a duel that you are most excited for, T? Like, if you're taking a look at the Division I field?
Oh, it's got to be Big Muck and Menominee. The 4-5 matchup, if you talk about great seeding, I do love that one. Like I said, it's two teams where there's not a whole lot of all-stars, right? We're not talking teams with 7 state champions or something like that, but it's just really well-rounded. There's very few holes within both lineups, and I think that's going to create – I'm sure there's some backups whose names we haven't seen. You brought up Stokowski for Mugwanago. We'll see how she plays in to that lineup, but I am excited for that one. And there just is – you talk about Mugwanago's tradition, making it 12 times. Menominee's first time qualifying for team state. We'll see how that factor plays in. The cool thing with this field, Nate, 5 of the teams here were not here last year. So a lot of fresh faces from the year before.
A lot of fresh faces. And you touched on it before, but I love to see, Menominee is way up on the opposite side of the state of Mugwanago, and I love that they're just going to meet in the middle here, sort of in figuratively in Madison, and they're going to match up, and just coming from completely 2 different parts of the state. I don't know. Part of that has just a little bit of intrigue for me. It's just 2 different sides of the state. They don't normally see each other, so it's going to be exciting. That is probably the duel I am most excited for here in round 1. But as it keeps going, there are some really big duels that I would like to see.
And it's fun because there's a lot of unknowns with all these teams. What can Hartford Union do against a strong dual Wisconsin or Rapids team? Nate, of course, we think about the 2-7 drama from last year with the Bayport and Reedsburg. Not really drama, but Reedsburg came in as a really strong 7 seed, and they put on a show at the
Well
field
rounded.
house. We're talking about a Classic 8 rematch where the first duel was within 10 points. So what are the Arrowhead coaches going to do to make some adjustments? What are the Muskego coaches going to do? We could potentially see a completely different duel this time around, not in terms of results, but maybe it's just going to be a totally different dynamic from what we saw when you attended that one at the Muskego. It looked like you were in a pit almost, which was a great environment.
Amazing environment. That was a new gym. I don't know how many within the last how many years, but that is a new part of the Muskego High School. And I tell you what, that felt like it was made for wrestling. The wrestling room was right off to the side. There was the bleachers there, this nice, beautiful, like window setup backdrop in the background. And that place echoed. It echoed and it was loud. It was a great setup for wrestling. It was a great dual meet. It had some big swings. That 106-pound matchup with Cooper, I'm going to mess up the last name, Teague Herzig from Muskego and Jaden Torres from Arrowhead. That's going to be a huge matchup in the duel, just like it was when they wrestled earlier in the season. That's one of those that both teams need it. Both teams need that match if they want to keep their season alive and move on.
A lot of eyes in the field house going to be on that 2-7 matchup. Nate, let's head to the D2 field where maybe no surprise with this one at the top of the bracket, but the 1 seed this year, the Luxembourg Casco Spartans qualifying for Team State for the 20th time in their program history. And of course, looking to defend their Team State championship from last year. They're taking on the Kewaskum Indians. So their first time qualifying for Team State. And wow, just to look at the resumes for both teams this year, what they brought to state and how both teams performed there.
Yes. If you're taking a look at that, if the lettering for Casco looks a little small, that is incredible. They had 9 state qualifiers and 9 state placers at the state tournament. So I would say a heck of a weekend for Luxembourg Casco. For Kewaskum, this is a team that I could not be more excited about for their future. I just think they seem to be growing and getting better every year. They're building something really special over in Kewaskum, and I feel like every year they just add a couple more state qualifiers, a couple more state placers, and as you can see, they've put together a really solid team by getting this bid to Team State. But they're taking on a big time team in Luxembourg Casco, looking to come back and win another state title. Uh, I mean, they possibly had one of the best performances at individual state. As you can see, it was just that many state placers. Yeah, this is a really great matchup. But Kewaskum will have to they'll have to make some magic happen. But there's no better time to do it than when you're in the barn. And I feel like we've seen it before. We've seen upsets like that happen before, and we've seen some crazy things happen in a Kewaskum team that is scrappy and young. I think anything can happen with them for sure.
Well, I know with these two, there's going to be some really fun battles in the lighter weights. I'm especially thinking maybe 26 and 38 among those battles. And Nate, it's a tough thing here before we go to the 2-3. Of course, we have 4 teams that we're talking about, so we know who the next 2 are. The big question going into individual state was who ends up getting that dreaded 4 seed. And there's a lot that goes into the seeding. It's oddly similar for team state seeding to individual state seeding, where you take a full lineup of 14 from each team, and you're basically use criteria to rank the guys 1 through 4 at each weight. And then you take the averages of where each team's lineup fell. So I don't know if there's a way to find that information fully straight up. People might have to do some research, but I know there's folks wondering how Kewaskum ended up with the 4 spot, because it was a big question going in. Who's going to get the 4 between Kewaskum, St. Croix Falls, and Prairie du Chien? So that's a little quick explanation of it, and we can talk more about it later in the week as well. Speaking of those 2 and 3 seeds, let's head to that second matchup in a Division II. The 2 seed, the St. Croix Falls Saints, their 4th time qualifying for Team State, all in the last 7 years. their first time making it in a Division II, going against the Prairie du Chien Blackhawks, their fifth time qualifying for Team State. Nate, last 5 years in a row, they are on quite a run. So two teams that have really found their run in a recent history.
Yes, Prairie du Chien has, as you said, they've kind of found it in recent history, and they've been so close a few times now. Last year, being one of them, they made the finals. They're looking to win their first state title as a team, and this year they're again sitting in a good position to try and punch their ticket back to the finals. But there's a scrappy team on the other side there, St. Croix, waiting for them, and I don't know. I think this is a match where you can see both teams winning this duel. I think PDC will be that favorite for sure, but again, St. Croix, they've had some really impressive moments in the season.
Again, another duel where I'm really excited for the coaching battle. Joe Rager of St. Croix Falls, a state champion for the Saints, and Mike Rogie, head coach for Prairie du Chien. You talk about the team's recent success, and maybe it starts near the top, Nate, with what those two have done. So again, maybe just like the duels that we talked about in D1, I'm safe to assume we're not going to see the straight up potential lineups that people might have seen at regionals or sectionals or team sectionals for that matter. But here it is, the full Division II bracket. Nate, while we're here, just going to beg the question. There's a bracket like this because there's always a strong team at the top, it seems like in Division 2 or 3. Would you love to see a potential third place match at some point for a team state?
You know, they already have the four teams there. I part of me wants to say why not, right? Some of these matchups, some of those teams matchups, I would love to see regardless if it's in the finals or not. But then there's the other part of me, maybe the old head in me where I look at it and I think, man, like these teams um where's I going with that team? Once you make the finals, like that's what we're there for. We're there to win a state title. So if you don't make the finals, part of me is like, man, that's it. You know, it's one and done in a dual thought process. It's one and done, and you got to keep moving on, and that's all that matters. And I think there's some value in that. So I think I want to stick with no third place matches if I could pick one. And you're just fighting for your state title, and that's it. If you're not first, you're last.
Well, it's certainly an interesting conversation starter, and one that I'm sure maybe we'll be talking about more this week, or folks around the state will be having. That is it, folks. The Division II field. Can someone knock off the Spartans as they look for their second trip or their second team state championship in a row? It would be their 14th overall in a program history. That leaves us with the one division to go. Last but certainly not least, a Division III. Let's take a look at the first matchup. The first seed, the Fenimore Golden Eagles, qualifying for team state for the 9th time, looking to capture their third team state title in a row. And they'll be taking on the Cumberland Beavers, who are making it to team state for the second time. Their first since they made the team state finals in 1999. And Nate, there are some fun individual matchups in this one that we could be seeing.
Super fun individual matchups. As a fan of the sport, I would, and I don't know if this makes any sense for Cumberland, but as a fan of the sport, I would love to see a Dawson Johnson bump up to 144 to wrestle state champion Ian Krapp. I think if you take a look at the Fenimore lineup with their state qualifiers and with their state placers, they when a team can go on a run, Teague, when a team can go on a run, they have someone kind of spread out throughout the whole 14 weights that can kind of halt that run for a team, halt that momentum. As you see, Gratz up top as a state champion, Stelt there in the middle, and then a few weights lower, they have Krapp as another state champion. I think right there, those are like your momentum stoppers and momentum starters for the other team. But Cumberland has maybe no bigger momentum starter than the four-time state champion on their team in Dawson Johnson.
And Cumberland got a chance to see them this year a couple of times. Not many more talented teams in the Northwest than the Beavers, and it'll be Awesome to see how these two battle it out in the first round, which brings us to, again, Division 3. It was a matter of who's going to end up at getting that dreaded fourth seed, but the 2-3 matchup is a set, Nate, and one that's interesting because these two shared a sectional the last few years. Let's check out this 2-3 matchup here. We're coming in with the second seed as a Wyowega Fremont. Their first time qualifying for the team state tournament and wrestling down at the field house. They'll be going against the Coleman Cougars, who are no strangers to wrestling in Madison in March. It is their 17th time qualifying for team state.
Yeah. So as you said, no strangers to team state are the Coleman Cougars. Man, I got to tell you, I think they have to have one of the richest wrestling communities and traditions across the state. They bring the fan base wherever they go. Their youth club is ginormous, and they just do a great job over there. And they've been a real regular here at the field house. But Wyowega Fremont and Coach Potraz, hopefully I'm saying that right, Trevor. They are building something over there. They have a really solid team this year. I've watched them a couple of times. I've got to see their guys wrestle, and the thing that stood out most to me, and you can kind of see it on that graphic, is they're just well-rounded, right? They got a couple of placers, Hoffman being one of them in the state finals last night. They got a couple of state placers, but they just have a team that you need to win duels. When you're talking about a dual tournament, you need well-rounded and you need no holes, and that's what they've put together. And they are sitting in a good spot here at Team State to not only be here for the first time, but put themselves in the finals and take on a Fenimore squad that they came out of a tough sectional, but they will have more state qualifiers than them. So I think that's a little interesting wrinkle here.
Fun and matchup for sure, as both teams have a duel to Shiocton this year. Wyowega Fremont in the Central Wisconsin Conference season. Coleman, of course, going against Shiocton in the team sectional finals. But like you said, Nate, two teams that really aren't too far away from each other, just happen to be in separate sectionals this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a great opportunity with a fun narrative to see how Wyowega, see if they can prove themselves their first time wrestling in the field house. So let's get a look at the full Division 3 team state bracket. The first thing that I noticed, Nate, you have the old guard against the newcomers, so to speak. Fenimore and Coleman, 26 total times wrestling at team state. And Cumberland, no stranger to success, but only their second time wrestling at the field house. Wyowega, their first time qualifying, as we talked about. Seems like there could be a rite of initiation here that Cumberland and Wyowega Fremont need to pass in this first round on a Saturday morning.
Absolutely, and there's probably the perfect way to put it. An old guard and a new guard. A couple of teams that have been here, they've done it, they've won the whole thing, and a couple of teams that are pretty dang new here to the field house. But I think they're going to be ready. We mentioned it before when we were talking about Division 1 with the Menominee and McGuanago, and can you settle into this environment and not let your emotions get too high and too low when you go out there for your team and you're trying to get 6, or you're trying not to give up 6, because at the end of the day, the individual state tournament is over, and whatever you do when you step out there on the mat as a wrestler this weekend, and you see it every single year, and it's the beauty of our sport, is there's nobody out there that isn't doing whatever they have to do for their team. Like, your individual season's over, and there's no more seeding. There's no anything. It is, what do you have to do for your team? Do you have to go get bonus points? Do you have to not give up bonus points? Guys know their roles, and if they can settle in here, if those new guard can settle in here and feel comfortable right away in this crazy environment with, let's be honest, there's going to be some rabid fans from the Fenimore and Coleman side. They got really big, strong, supportive fan bases. You can settle in. I think that magic can happen, and I said it before, but that sort of thing. It'll be March. There's madness.
Nate, I'm glad you brought up the Fenimore and Coleman fans, because I was going to say, important tip for the Cumberland and Wyowega Fremont spectators: get to the field house early because of the Fenimore and Coleman fans fill up the stands big, and they fill it up fast as well. I always think of that sea of yellow that we
Yes.
see on Team State Finals a Saturday afternoon. So Division 2 and 3, folks, 10 a.m. we have the semis. Again, that is 4 mats going on at one time. It is absolute madness, which we love to see. The D1 quarters are on Friday at 5:30. They wrestle the semis about 20 minutes after that. And of course, we have the finals. I love the individual state marching champions, but being someone who's made the team state marching champions, there's not many things better than those teams walking through, seeing everyone in their community from the top of the field house. And it's an experience unlike any other. You get goosebumps at just being in there.
I just did. I just got goosebumps when you said it.
It is just such a unique experience that you need to be a part of, whether you're rooting for these teams or not. If you love Wisconsin wrestling and you like good wrestling in general, make your way back to Madison on a Friday and a Saturday. Nate, do you have any closing thoughts on the fields or the brackets before we sign off?
Well, I just want to say the first thing, like you said, when they do that March of Champions with the team and they walk through the crowd, first time I saw that, I was in awe. It was something incredible. And yeah, if you want to see good wrestling, if you just want to see entertainment, you have to get to the field house. And if you want to make other people fans of the sport, there's probably no better place to start. You bring them to the field house. You get someone that's on the fence. They kind of like wrestling. Just take them there this weekend, and they will love it. Overall, though, Division One, I think a lot of things can happen. I think it feels like when you're making a bracket and you want to fill it out, brackets could be busted round one, and you could see a lot of different people making the finals. You could see a lot of different people making the semis. I think you wrestle these duels multiple times, and you can get multiple teams to win each time. So super excited for the Division One field. In Division Two, Casco is going to be that heavy favorite, right? But there's a reason you wrestle each match. There's a reason you wrestle the duels, and like we said before, everyone is there for their team. And you just have to do what you have to do your role to get the job done. And that's the beauty of it, because that's how you change predictions into becoming your own outcomes. And in Division 3, again, the old guard and the new guard is the storyline here. Will Fenimore and Coleman give them a real warm welcome to the field house, or will the new guard say, hey, we may be unfamiliar faces with this territory, but we are not unfamiliar with wrestling, and we know how to get the job done, and they move on. So super excited for all these duels. I can't wait to see all of the fans and the people in the field house and in Madison this weekend. Last weekend, individual state Teague, we are kind of on the floor and we are up in the booth commentating, and I don't feel like I get a lot of time to spend with the fans of these teams. But at Team State, I feel like I'm right into the thick of it with all of the fans, and I'm a fan too. So I am super excited. What do you think, Teague?
Well, you got to be personable with the fans here, because basically the crowd is right on top of you when you're on the floor. And Nate, how can we forget one of my favorite parts of Team State, the pep bands that get things going on a Friday night and Saturday morning? No better way to help get the crowd going. The big question on a Saturday afternoon for everybody: are we going to see 3 repeat championship performances as the Kaukauna Galloping Ghosts are going for their 14th state title in a row? Luxembourg looks to win their second, and Fenimore is looking to get that the repeat, trying to win 3 team state titles in a row. We'll have all those questions answered by a Saturday evening. But Nate, it's been a great time talking about these brackets with you, and even with the quick turnaround, we're already in team state mode, right? We have 13 duels that we'll be keeping track of. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you this week.